think America is going on the right track, and 2/3 think it's going on the wrong track. There's another poll out yesterday that we cited that said only 33% of Americans agree with Donald Trump's handling of the U.S. government. You look at all of the economic numbers, this is where Trump's handling of the issues on the economy, the Associated Press, only that's lower, I think, than Joe Biden's numbers at his lowest point. I mean, we're moving toward George W. Bush numbers at the end of his term here. The economy, only 33% approve. Health care, again, for Democrats that are too stupid to realize you won the government shutdown, don't be stupid. You won the government shutdown. Only 34% of Americans agree with Donald Trump's handling of health care. Immigration, it's the issue that he's been right side up on. Now, he's 15 points in the negative on his strongest issue, in part because these ongoing masked ICE raids of American cities. And then there you go, the handling of the federal government, 33%. And then you add on top of that, I mean, I've been on the House floor. I know what it's like when everybody gets on the House floor and starts talking, when your party gets walloped. And it very quickly, people are like, okay, yeah, we got to take care of ourselves because the guy on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue is not going to do it. Well, that's exactly what the Republicans are starting to think right now on Capitol Hill. So how does he hold this coalition together and tell them to vote to protect records of a pedophile?
Yeah, the reemergence of the Epstein story comes at the worst possible time for President Trump.
Bad timing.
This is the weakest moment of his second term by far. Republicans lose badly at the ballot box last week on Election Day. You just went through a lot of polls where Americans clearly unhappy with Trump's performance as president. We had the Supreme Court express real skepticism of his signature economic policy, these tariffs. That may be unwound in days ahead. We have, of course, the hubbub about the ballroom and everything else where Trump, is slipping here. And we also are seeing he's running into, and this is rare, the limits of his power with his own party. Those calls to the House of Representatives, those congresswomen who defied him and said, no, we're not going to do that. As I reported for a piece I wrote last night for The Atlantic, he's talking to allies. They may have a similar pressure campaign with some senators once the bill goes there. And if it does pass both chambers, and we don't know that it will, but if it does pass both chambers, then he's going to be in a position where he'll have to veto it. And that will, of course, raise all sorts of questions. What is he hiding? And even some of his allies that he's been on the, as I reported, he's been on the phone with over the last 48 hours are saying to him, like, you're not handling this the right way. You're just causing more attention to it. You're acting like you do have something to hide. And that is, Vaughn Hilliard, where we are right now. It's a White House trying to exhibit some damage control, furiously sort of spin their way out of this. But it is. Privately, they acknowledge this is a tough moment. So take us inside the room there. What more should we expect from the White House and from the president himself? And we open this hour with a telling video clip. Since the Epstein emails were released, President Donald Trump, not camera shy. He loves taking questions from the press pool anyway, usually stacked with friendly faces, since now the White House has gained control largely over that. Hasn't taken a single question. Reporters did not get to go in to see his dinner with business leaders the other night. When he signed the bill to get the government open again, no questions. And as we showed yesterday, he and the First Lady hurriedly left that event in the East Room. Again, he doesn't want to be asked about Epstein.
Right, and even if you go back to a year ago, he wouldn't want to take questions about Stormy Daniels. He would want to take questions about anything else besides the allegations of sexual impropriety, of cheating on his spouse, of being affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein here. And I think this is what has left Caroline Leavitt and those White House allies in such a difficult place. Now, number one, of course, they've chosen to come and defend and represent this individual. But at the same time, right, you can't just label this as a hoax when, document by document, argument, according to this private communication, Jeffrey Epstein makes the case that Donald Trump was, in fact, aware of the girls. And it's more than just kicking him out of your club. But to what extent, over the course of 3 decades, do you associate with this individual and prop up, effectively, the power dynamics in which young women are taken advantage of? And I think this comes down to, when you're talking about American voters, in 2016, so many people voted for him on the idea that it was locker room talk. But in the decades since, it's more than locker room talk. There is now a file of evidence in which the president has serious accusations of sexual assault and harassment that have been levied against him. He was found to have paid off Stormy Daniels in order to advance his presidential campaign. He was found to have defamed and sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll. And if you go back to how voters view people that face these allegations, Herschel Walker lost. Roy Moore lost. Charles Herbster lost. Sean Parnell was pushed out of his race over in Pennsylvania here. You know, I think that this is where there is a reckoning among the American electorate in which Donald Trump has not shown any regret. And if you look at this at a very human level, he has left people like his secretary in a very difficult position because he has not been able over the last decade to take that inner look and tell the American public that he regrets associating with Jeffrey Epstein. Instead, he sent his deputy attorney general down to have a conversation with Ghislaine Maxwell and won't rule out a potential pardon for her here. I think that this is a moment, whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, or Nancy Mace, I think that this is what is going to lead to Leader Thune really being the focus point of attention, and whether he even brings this discharge petition up for a vote, and whether there are going to be 13 Republican senators that agree to release these files. It is damning, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for the Republican Party to defend what its own voters are unwilling to themselves.
Well, and from the public perspective, from the electorate's perspective, I mean, the thing about this story, too, is that it's not like having to understand what a clean